Welcome to Mathematics for the Trades. This is continuation of Chapter 4, Ratio, Proportion, and Percent. We are going to focus on Section 4.3, Introduction to Percent, if you want to follow in your book. And we're only going to cover a short part of this. We're only going to really look at solving applications involving percents. The rest of it, changing decimal numbers to percents, fraction of percents, we're going to hit that briefly, but the majority of that's going to be a review that you'll have in your on your diagnostic quiz and on your homework. I want to make sure that you are comfortable seeing how to solve it as a problem, though. So the word percent comes from percentum, which means by the 100 or for every 100. So that's why you see a number written over 100 is a percent, and we use a percent symbol. And so it's being compared to a second number, which is called the standard of the base, so 3% of something. And so this is our quick review for how to convert fractions, decimals, and percents. And so I included another column, the out of 100, to hopefully help people remember what that is and how to do it. So when we look at the top row, we see that 1/4 is our fraction. The decimal is going to be 0.25. It's going to be 25 out of 100, and it's going to be 25%. So the way that we got that is we can look at this and say, okay, so if we're going fraction to decimal, and I want to change from fraction to a decimal, then I can say, okay, I know that 1/4, 1 over 4, or 1 divided by 4, remember, a fraction is just a division problem, means that I can rewrite that as well as 1 divided by 4. And if I do that, I get 1 divided by 4, and that equals 0.25. So that's my decimal that I get for this problem. So that's how I convert that. I can also look at this, and knowing that it is a percent, and what we heard about percents, it has to do with a number out of 100, that I'll look at this and say that I have 25 out of 100 of something. One of the ways that I can do that is to turn this from a percent is to look at my decimal. And if I'm going decimal to percent, I can take this decimal and move it over 2 places, and I get the decimals put right there behind there, which is now a whole number, 25. So that is 25 out of 100, or 25%. Vice versa, if I want to go the other direction, I can change it from a percent to a decimal. And we'll look at all the different variations of this as we solve these problems here. So let's go ahead and look at 1/2. So if we want to change from a fraction to a decimal, and out of 100 and a percent, let's see, if we say 1/2, or 1 divided by 2, 1 divided by 2, I'm sure all of you have this already, you probably filled this chart out by now even, so is 0.5. So we're going to say then that we can move this decimal over 2 places, 1, 2 places, fill in a 0 there where there wasn't anything, and now that's 50 and a decimal, which is a whole number of 50. So I can say it is 50 out of 100. And I can also put a percent here sign after I move that over and say that that is 50%. Okay. Now let's go ahead and look at this, changing this from a decimal to a fraction, going this direction. Well, what we can do is we can remember that this is 0.6 of a number that is out of 100, and so we can say that if we want to turn this into, it might be easier to go ahead and turn it out of 100 first, and so we can say that this is 60 out of 100. And then if we do that, then now we have a division problem, and we can say that this is 60 divided by 100. So basically we're just reducing to a smaller denominator and reducing that down. Oh, sorry about that. It turns it into a decimal. So what we'll do is, like I said, we'll reduce this by the denominator, and so we know that both of these will divide by 10. And so 60 divided by 10 is 6, 100 divided by 10 is 10. Reduces further by dividing it by 2, divided by 2, and we end up with 3 over 5. And so 3/5 will now go over to here, and 3/5 is our fraction. And through all of this mess here, we can go ahead and change from a decimal to a percent. Might be the easiest way to be able to do that, because we can just move our decimal 1, 2 places over, and we have a percent, and so 60%. All right. If we look at this as trying to go as we have a number 5 out of 100, then again we can go ahead and turn that into a fraction automatically and go 5 out of 100. And that can actually be reduced down itself, so divided by 5 on the top, divided by 5 on the bottom, gives us 1/20th. And so once we have 1/20th and we have a fraction, so from either way, either 5 out of 100 or 1/20th, either way, we can go ahead and divide this. So 5 divided by 20. Oh, sorry. 1 divided by 20. I was looking at the problem above it. 1 divided by 20. And we end up with 0.05 as our decimal. 0.05 is our decimal. And if we want to change decimal to percent to fill in the box over here, then we can move this over again 1, 2 places, put the percent, and go 5%. So let's see, if we start off as a percentage, one thing that we know about percents is it's some number out of 100. So we can say that that is 17 out of 100. And if we do that, then we know that that is a fraction. So let's get our calculator again and go 17 divided by 100. So for our decimal, that will give us 0.17. And for a fraction, we know it's a fraction, so it's 17 of 100. And that's about it. It won't reduce any farther. So that is our most simple fraction, and we'll go ahead and leave it at that. So go back and you can look at this and practice filling this in yourself. Start at the beginning of the video and it'll be blank, and fill it in if you need to practice. It has some problems in the homework as well that you'll be able to practice, but I really wanted to get to where we were looking at the word problems, and we'll look at more of these percentage word problems in the next sections of the chapter. So this is just a quick start as we look at a sample problem using slope. And so looking at the slope here, trying to calculate the percentage of slope. And one of the important things is we see that slope is vertical distance over horizontal distance. You'll also notice that slope is very similar to pitch. Just like we described the pitch of a roof, we described the slope of a roof. The pitch would be the rise over run, which is also very similar to vertical distance over horizontal distance. And so to be able to calculate this, we say that we look at this and it has a rise of 20 feet and a horizontal distance of 70 feet. And so we can reduce those down to 2/7. To solve that as a percent, I'm sure you're way ahead of me already. Because you see the line there, you know that that's a fraction. You can go 2 divided by 7, which equals 0.28. Remember that once you get the decimal, that you're going to move that over. You're going to go from 0.28 over 2 places to be able to make the percent. And so we have a 28% slope. All right, that's the end of this video, and we will continue on chapter 4 in the next video.